Hello, everybody, and welcome to or back to my YouTube channel. My name is Kenneth, and Happy New Year! This is the first video of 2024 that I am recording, and we're finally here. Today, we're going to be reacting to Pablo's song La Luna. I've been told that this is a successor to the question mark song that we reacted to. It feels like a year ago now. Sorry, that was a really bad joke. Okay. But no, today we're here to react to La Luna. I have the official music video as well as the performance from the Wish Bus. I'm kind of looking forward to how this song develops or disregards themes that were introduced in the question mark song, just because obviously, if this is a successor musically, it will be interesting to see how Pablo develops those ideas, or, as I said, disregards them as he moves through his musical ideas. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get into it. Okay, we're starting off with the moon and already shackles, so already keeping those kinds of themes going. Feeling trapped. Feeling abandoned, given the setting. It's very horror movie-esque. That's an interesting font. That. Can we just talk about that before the music starts? Already though, I'm enjoying the kind of musical vibe of this. The font, it's very like wolf scratches or animal scratches on a wall. It's interesting like how many different claw marks there are, as though it's kind of been formed over time rather than just, you know, scratching what's the word, scratching once and just like kind of leaving it alone. It shows how the themes and struggles that Pablo is putting into the song have existed over a period of time. But I just wanted to comment on that because this is a really cool font. Interesting.
Anong ingay yun? San nanggaling yun? Sa tagal nakakulong bilang araw ng panahon. Teka, got my shackles on. That means I am home. Got no room for visitors. It'd be best if y'all leave me alone. Hey, go away. I'd be rude if I ask you to stay. Cause I'm gon' pray right before I try to eat my prey. You know what they say. Who cares what they say? Don't invade my space. Cause if you do, then I'll leave you like what you doing. Not okay.
Okay, already I love this. Musically, you have this da 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 motif in the background with strings. The wordplay already with this is so good. And we're carrying on, and we're really leaning into the kind of the wolf mythology in this. The idea that, you know, when he says, "I'd be rude if I asked you to stay, because I'm gonna pray right before I try to eat my prey." That's such a clever little thing, because obviously in that kind of mythology, there is this often, I don't want to say religious aspect, but certainly spiritual aspect in a lot of lycanthropy based mythology. That idea of kind of praying that you don't change, praying that it doesn't happen. I just want to say as well, I really like. I'm going to start again because I really like it. But I like the way he's. I like the way he's forcibly trying to keep people out of his space, especially as he fights with himself. I love the contrast between. I'm gonna guess this is outer Pablo, and then this is inner demons, inner thoughts Pablo. I'm gonna go back though because I'm really liking this.
Anong ingay yun? San nanggaling yun? Sa tagal nakakulong bilang araw ng panahon. Teka, got my shackles on, that means I am home. Got no room
I
for
love how he does that.
visitors, it'd be best if y'all leave me alone. Hey, go away, I'd be rude if I ask you to stay. Cause I'm gon' pray right before I try to eat
love
my
the
prey.
rhythm of
You know
this.
what they say, who cares what they say? Don't invade my space, cause if
That as well, the way, who cares what there's like an almost like demon-esque effect on the voice there.
pray, you know what they say, who cares what they say? Don't
I
invade
like
my
that.
space, cause if you do, then I'll leave you like what you doing. Not okay. Siguro nga panahon na para ako'y magising. Harapin at yakapin, tunay na ako'y magiging. Alamin mga bagay na makakaya kong gawin. Kapag ang takot at kinakatakutan ko'y ako rin. Kahit saan magpunta'y biging uhaw ay di na darating. Ako'y magpapakalasing sa dugong bawat magpiling. Umagay di na darating, buwan ay laging nakating. Hindi na usong huling hiling, tara simulan natin. That was a nice proposal, but I'm trying to avoid trouble. I'll admit keeping myself to myself isn't ideal. Should I really go out there and be healthy, though it's clear that the whole world is unfair, plus stay. Okay, I've been living all my life.
Hey yo, I like that. I really like so far as we moved from what I'm determining as Pablo, like outer Pablo that we see, to the more inner thoughts Pablo. I like that the musicality changes. It becomes less rap and more singing when he kind of takes over. It's weird when he's saying when he takes over as if it's a different person, but it kind of is. Um,
Kahit saan magpunta'y biging
I like the kind of subversion of this with the fear because he talks about how the one thing he really fears is himself, and so he's kind of like, I can go anywhere and I can enjoy myself in spite of that. It's this really it's this really kind of topsy-turvy kind of way of thinking. The idea of, if I'm only scared of myself, what do I have to be afraid of?
uhaw ay di na darating. Ako'y magpapakalasing sa dugong bawat magpiling.
I like the idea as well of being drunk on blood. This idea of, if he does go out and allows himself to be overtaken by this kind of feeling, he will have like a wolfy bloodlust. And being drunk here, it almost gives. This is gonna sound stupid, but it gives kind of Stefan vibes from the Vampire Diaries, with the Ripper aspect of kind of like, if he just keeps destroying things around him in this kind of almost like manic state, maybe, that things won't matter because he's so intoxicated that for him it's this subversive escape, but there could be consequences.
Umagay di na darating, buwan ay laging nakating. Hindi na usong huling hiling, tara
It's interesting as well. He says last wish is forbidden. And I don't necessarily know what he means by that. Except the only thing I can think of is for instance, when you rub the lamp of a genie and you do the whole 3 wishes thing. And there's lots of those kind of tropes where you're like, I wish for more wishes. I wish for more wishes. And in most kind of literature and mythology around that, it's often like outlawed. You can't wish for more wishes. You can't do. So it's interesting here that he says that the last wish is is old-fashioned, because it's almost like he's telling himself, you can wish for more wishes, you can embrace this kind of dark manic nature of yourself and push it for your benefit. I don't know if I'm misinterpreting that, but that's kind of what I feel. Also, I love the change up that that happens. I know I know I keep going back, and I'm sorry. I like the change that happens here after this line.
Simulan natin. Ito was a nice proposal, but I'm trying to avoid trouble. I'll admit keeping myself to myself is an ideal. Should I
If anyone has dealt with mental health, depression, things like that, you know that, or maybe even just you know someone who has, you know that in those times that people will often isolate themselves because they feel like they can't. It's kind of like a two-sided prong. On the one side, they feel like they are not worth being around other people, and similarly, they also think that because of that, that they can't deal with other people, because they, and it does happen a lot, especially with the stigmatism of mental health. But you have this fear, and a lot of people, as I said, unfortunately make it come true, where people don't understand your depression or don't understand your mental health, and they'll just be like, oh, it's just this, it's just that, just get over it. And so it leads to this kind of pattern of going in on yourself and isolating. I'm really looking forward to seeing this in the performance, because it's gonna be so intriguing. Again, the switch up when this line comes in, and we go back to almost an unconfident Pablo.
ating hindi na usong huling hiling, tara simulan natin. Ito was a nice proposal, but I'm trying to avoid trouble. I'll admit keeping myself to myself is an ideal. Should I really go out there and be
I love this descending motif in the strings as well.
Okay.
Sorry, I just want to comment on something else as well.
Only though it's clear that the whole world is a frivolous.
So there are pizzicato strings, that's plucking, as well. So on the lower side of the music, kind of the bass notes, it's following this descending motif, da 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 da, and it's kind of going down like that. Meanwhile, the pizzicato is really high, and it's almost shrieking. If you listen to it, it's almost like it's less plucked, in the traditional sense of plucking, and it's almost like on the verge of, like, you've got the violin or whatever instrument it happens to be, and you're less plucking it as much as pulling the strings as far as they can, reasonably go without kind of being pulled off the instrument a little bit, like, and then it's kind of scaled back a little bit in the mix, which I think is really interesting. Also, it's really it's really sobering to see a man of Pablo's talent and ability, seeing how he deals both in this and in the question mark song, how he deals with these really raw problems. I feel so bad for him. I hope he's doing better in himself now. But obviously struggles like these often come and go, and I hope he's doing better. Sorry. Also, I didn't give a pause warning, but pause warning.
Should I really go out there and be healthy, though it's clear that the whole world is a frivolous day? Okay. I've been living all my life right behind these bars. I'll be the life, the night got for all these guys. I like your mind, I think I'm very 6 feet. What's beneath the pain that came from Halifax? These are my lifelines, all time, it's my time. Life to match twists and turns, yeah. I'll keep up
Ooh, that transition. Okay, I just want to say that change up. I also like the way that in this section you had this choral arrangement in the background, and it really, like, for me, it made me think of the kind of fan base a little bit, the kind of way that he has, you know, found all of us, and we have found him and found SB19 and stuff like that, and that kind of all it's got this kind of drive to it where we're kind of following like what he does and stuff like that, and we pay attention to him, and it's kind of lyrically, it's kind of that kind of fact is bolstered by the kind of metaphor of the red curtain when this transition. I love that, but also this kind of the later lyric in this where he says that respect can't be bought by money or bought with money. You know, he has, and all of the members of SB19 have all put in so many hours. They've, you know, put so much of themselves into their music, into their performances, into everything that they do. And it's kind of like, this is the part of Pablo that's like, I'm entitled to feel this way. I'm entitled to feel, to go out into the world and feel confident and live in spite of, you know, the fears that I have. And this is... I think that's such a good line as well. What's beneath it? Because when you die and you bury things, a lot of people say like there's nothing beneath you, or even, you know, the quite pejorative like I've hit rock bottom kind of metaphor comes to mind. Whereas he's almost suggesting that right now he feels this way and he's 6 feet below. But the more pain he takes, the more he actually rises, and the more he builds himself back up. I also think with this line about the moon sees, I think it's here, it's the start of the moon, as well as the earlier line about the moon sees all. It's this kind of thing of him remembering, or he will remember, kind of who was there for him in maybe these destructive manic moments versus who maybe say they will be there and then are not. Because there's a lot of people that are like, I will be here no matter what. And then the time comes where you kind of need that person or need someone. And at that point it was just words, and it means nothing. So that's kind of what I got from that, especially as well with this lyric here about blood spilling upon tainted judgmental souls. Because there's so many people that they will say like, oh, I'm here for you, or oh, I understand, and then the kind of moment comes where they're tasked to prove that, and they don't. And the lyricism, again, Pablo's lyricism is so inspired. I'm in love with this. I know I keep pausing, and people are probably gonna be like, "You haven't even heard the whole song yet." No, I haven't. But I'm enjoying what I'm hearing, and I like to stop and comment on things as we go. Mainly because if I got through the entire song, I would trip myself up and forget what I have to say, and then people would just be like, "Oh, he just sat there and watched it." But I love this. The overlays are really interesting too. I love the the dressing of him. Forgive me, I don't know the term.
Kailangan wala sila, yun ay di problema. Kayang-kaya at matagal na ginagawa ko na. Ang iba'y iniisip na sila'y pag wala sila. Pwes di ako tulad nila, hibang ka ba? Sa wala ako'y namoy sa wala ko pa'y napagkain na lupa. San man mapat padaking pa, di inidahan na kalips na. Hanggang sa, di na malaya na ang puso ay bato na. Kaya kinulong ko ang sarili mag-isa at binigayan na tatanging susi na meron ako sa kan. Yeah! At kung mahanap ang sarili, magkukusa luluwas sa lungga. At magsisimula, ito ang lalo na hindi kita pipilitin na maniwala. Ang ibig mas nakikita kapag ito'y wala.
Okay, I just want to pause because there's a lot to talk about here too. It's very ironic. It's very ironic that he talks about being in a prison when the setting is this open space. Partially because this open space, while it is an open space, it's the way it's being shot. I think it maybe middle of autumn, late autumn, maybe even the start of winter, where these kind of actually maybe not, maybe mid autumn because there's still some greenery, but this kind of thing where everything around him is dying or is in that state where the kind of autumn winter transition happens where everything dies before flowering again in spring. It serves as this very interesting image of being, you know, of being. It's almost like when you think about like farm animals. You know, you have that term of being a free range animal or a barn animal or a battery animal or, you know, that kind of thing. And it's interesting here with the way that this is shot, that there's almost no difference between these shots where he's literally behind a bar or behind a set of bars versus in this almost dead forest, or at least wood if it's not a forest. I think it's very the spirituality of this song is very, very strong because you've got this deity that Pablo is revering throughout the song, the moon. He says he won't force anyone to kind of to believe in it, but he believes in it, and he's saying that he gave the only key maybe to himself to this deity, and it very much evokes those kind of feelings of a deal, you know, in a lot of fairy tale mythology, in those types of literature. There's often a deal to be made. You know, I will give you everything that you could ever want, but your soul is forever bound to me. That kind of thing, which is definitely something that feels like it's running through this entire kind of song. He feels, and especially when you think of it with regards to the question mark song, in that there was this cry for help, of reaching out, and almost like, you know, hearing it in this, a reverence for this deity, this being that almost is not returned, or at least doesn't feel like it's being returned. I also think as well, with this, the image of him talking about obviously his struggles growing up and into young adulthood before SB19. I think again this image of the I mean, you've got this kind of like abandoned cart thing, or maybe it's a wood logger. So you chop the trees down and you put the wood in, and then you transport the wood that way. But it's the way it's kind of sat there, it feels like it's been sat there for ages. Seems like it hasn't been moved. It almost looks like it's a part of the natural scenery around it. It's a man-made object, but it looks like nature's kind of come to reclaim it, or at least very least started to reclaim it. And again, this kind of image here, when you can see about him talking about going wherever he wants, scraping grounds. This image of him being on a path. But the way it's shot, talking about like being on paths generally is often seen as a positive thing, whereas here, while there is this kind of positive aspect and trust that he's going where he needs to go, there is, with the background, there is this kind of contrast of, I'm trusting this deity, I'm trusting myself, but this might not be anything, but there's something about the fact that he's wearing shoes. And this might be a non-thing. This might be a thing that I'm just reading into for the sake of reading into. But if you trust something unequivocally, you give yourself to whatever that thing is, whether it's a person, a deity, a concept, whatever it is, you give yourself wholly to it. And he's talking about scraping ground. And he's talking about taking himself wherever his feet go. But then he's wearing shoes. And I feel like when you think of pilgrimages, and you think about all those people, for instance, that travel to historic religious sites, you think about the way that people dress when they go to those kinds of places. A lot of the time, unless there's a medical reason or something, those people will often wear the bare essentials that need to be kind of covered for modesty, maybe a light covering of clothing in countries where these religious sites are, that maybe will protect you from the sun or protect you from the heat. But those places often are pilgrimaged by people who walk barefoot. And there's this interesting subversion here where he's wearing shoes. And obviously he's wearing, I'm going to assume they are traditional Filipino clothes. Please correct me in the comments. I don't know, but I'm assuming. So you have this kind of traditional garb he's wearing, but then he's wearing shoes. So it's almost like he talks about like how this deity has the key to him, and that he has faith in this deity. But then there's almost still a little bit of apprehension, because he's wearing these shoes. And he's not going to toll the ground barefoot. He's not going to, put boils, create boils on his feet as he walks. I might be reading too much into this, and I apologize if I am, but that's kind of just what I'm kind of understanding or seeing. Especially because if we think about the kind of the two Pablo scenario of the outward Pablo versus the internal Pablo, they are still ultimately the same person. They're represented in this music video as two separate entities, but they're two halves of the same whole. And so this apprehension that this more confident, reveling Pablo is feeling is still a part of that scared, maybe manic Pablo that he wants us to see. Again, I might be talking out of my backside, but That's interesting as well. I didn't pick up on the first time. Pick up on that on the first time. A tooth is more noticeable if it's missing. A lot of people in this maybe this kind of state or similar kind of states, there's often a feeling that the world will be better off without them, that nobody notices them, that their existence their existence is conditional on something. But Pablo here makes an excellent point in this lyric that people do notice. You know, when the situation gets to the point where, you know, maybe something drastic and dark does happen, and it does happen. We're not gonna kind of sugarcoat that. Dark things do happen. You know, so many people then will be like, oh, I didn't know this person felt like this, or oh, I didn't know they were going through this, or I wish I'd known so I could help. And I think it's encapsulated so well in that lyric. Um, I love this. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay. That was a great ending. I think as well. My first point about this, that ending of the word "you." He's talking to himself. He's not just there are the obvious kind of he's talking to you, the listener, the viewer, us, you know, the consumer. He's talking to himself, and I love the way that this builds up, and then just I love the way it builds up, and then it kind of fades out to that like ambient music, but the sound of the manacles are still keeping kind of pace, and then at the end, it zooms out, and then you've got this really symbolic image of the keys. This is an amazing song. This video is amazing. I like that. My interpretation is obviously that again the U is for him, not just us. But at the end, it's almost like he's giving himself the chance to be free, and to start living, as he said earlier, you know, about going out and being with people rather than being by himself. He's giving himself that chance to do that, and I think that is so crucial. Um, wow, this was amazing. It's also interesting that, you know, we have these two forms of Pablo, these two sides of Pablo, and it's the almost animalistic, ritualistic form that he takes that takes over the video. You know, when we look at like the kind of screen time we have, um, very little of it is of the actual entire music video. You know, we've got 45 seconds with the Pablo that is kind of arguably afraid, scared. And then at the end here, we have a couple more seconds of that. But the ultimate runtime of the music video is this dominating force, this again, this animalistic wolf-like force that follows the deity of the moon, and trusts in the moon, even if they don't trust the moon fully. it's just interesting that this entire, like, the runtime is this, is this force, and then ultimately it's this force that is going to, in theory, be kind of Pablo's savior, which is interesting because when you think about some of the lyrics in this video, you think about the bloodlust that is kind of detailed here. It almost suggests, like, what are the consequences of letting, there's that kind of, what are the consequences of letting this side of Pablo lead. In reality, I think it's not going to be as drastic as, like, some drama, on TV or something, but it's an interesting kind of thing to think about. Sorry, I just keep scrolling through because this is such, genuinely, this is such a fascinating concept. Also, I will say something I've noticed about Pablo's production decisions. There seems to be a love for strings for a start, but there's also this almost appreciation for the musicality of industry, because when you think about, like, songs like Gento and stuff like that, there's very kind of explicit industrial references, and the first thing we hear at the start is this manacle sound, but it doesn't sound like a manacle. It sounds like a hammer on an anvil, or on something. How do I put it? On something that you make. A hammer on a nail, a hammer on an anvil. It feels very deliberate in that way, and it almost kind of leans into that theme of, the both Pablo and SB19 both obviously put, as like two separate entities, they put their whole selves into making their life for themselves that they have now. But it's an interesting kind of contrast, having an image of imprisonment, and maybe even, you could maybe even stretch that to slavery, with this idea of that hard work, and maybe as well, there's this kind of idea that by taking ownership of that work, that empowers him too. I don't know. I might be talking nonsense, but that's what I think. I think now we're going to go over to the La Luna live performance. I'm not gonna lie, I'm ecstatic. I actually can't wait to see how this is performed, especially because certainly in the beginning we have those two opposing kind of voices. I want to see how he kind of approaches that live. It will be very interesting. So 3, 2, 1. I'm excited. I love his fashion.
Wish 107.5. Anong ingay yun? Saan nanggaling yun? Sa tagal nakakulong
The way he looks as he's delivering things.
Teka,
there's almost like a craze to it.
That means I am home. Got no room for visitors. It'd be best if y'all leave me alone.
Oh, sorry, no, that facial expression.
Got no room for visitors. It'd be best if y'all leave me alone.
There's almost this kind of thing of like when you tell someone to go away, and they don't, so you bring out the crazy. I'm watching it again.
Got no room for visitors. It'd be best if y'all leave me alone. Hey,
I love it.
Go away. I'll be rude if I ask you to stay. Cause I'm gon' pray right before I try to eat my prey. You know what they say.
Oh, I love it.
Cause if you chose, then I'll leave you like what you done. Not okay. Siguro nga panahon na para ako'y magising. Harapin at yakapin tunay na ako'y magiging. Alamin mga bagay na makakaya kong gawin. Kapag ang takot at kinakatakutan ko'y ako rin. Kahit saan magpunta'y piging uhaw ay di na
That laugh, I didn't notice that in the studio track.
Bawat magpiling umagay di na darating. Panay laging nakatingin. Di na usong uling-iling tara.
It's this kind of performance. I don't know if anyone has this, but when I watch things and like things get to me, or like they make me uncomfortable, but not in like a negative way. Obviously, the purpose of this kind of attitude is there is an element of making you uncomfortable. I have this tendency to like start scratching like my face, and this performance, like there's a difference between seeing Pablo in the music video versus seeing him perform. Like when you hear that first kind of contrast between the two halves of Pablo, there's that kind of effect on the vocal that obviously isn't here, but to hear like the way there's still something kind of unnerving and terrifying in this, and he's smiling. It's he has an amazing smile, but not the point. Oh.
I've been living all my life right behind these bars. I bleed the lights, the night cut for all these. Guess I look at mine, I'm buried 6 feet. What's beneath the pain that gave from Allegra? These are my lifeline. I'll die if it's my time. Life's a mess, twists and turns, yeah. I keep updating my timeline. Wala nang matatago pa. Nagbukas na ang bulang kortina. Simula na lalo na tukay dadana sa mga kaluluwang mapangusga. Kung hindi magtitimpi, kahit pa sabihin na hindi na dapat di tama ang mga mali. Kasi nga mali, kaya may respeto, hindi mabibili. Sa tanong buhay.
I love the way that we start, and it's almost like there's multiple shades of this unnerving feeling that he gives us. These camera angles, it's such a simple like dolly and kind of camera switch, but it, especially because of this angle in particular, contrasting with the more like eye level close up, there's something, it really helps like bolster that feeling of discomfort and almost feeling as the viewer that you're being drawn into this. His confidence is amazing.
Di kailanman kailangan ng maraming kaibigan na sa kalagitnaan ng digmaan ay nawawala. At kung kailangan wala sila, yun ay di problema. Kayang-kaya at matagal na ginagawa ko na. Ang iba'y iniisip na sila'y pag wala sila. Pwede ako tulad nila, ibang kaba. Galing sa wala ako'y namuhay sa walang upay na pagkain ng lupa. San man mapagpadaking paa, di na inindaan na kalipas na. Hanggang sa di na malaya na ang puso ay bato na. Kaya tinulog ko ang sarili mag-isa. Ang binigay ang natatanging suksi na meron ako sa kan. Yeah! At kung mahanap ang sarili, magkukusa luluwas sa lugar at magsisimula. Ito ang laluna, hindi kita pipilitin o maniwala. Ang even mas nakikita kapag ito'y wala.
That was really satisfying.
Wish exclusive on Wish 1075.
Interesting. Okay, that was amazing. I didn't notice some of the things in the music video audibly that I noticed in the live performance, and I think it's because I had less to focus on because it was just him and us like watching. This was amazing. I think as well. I just want to talk about like something that happened. I think earlier on in the song, there was a moment before he started like the first rap section, like the first like higher energy kind of rap section. There was a moment where he allowed like the backing track to carry on for him, so that he could take the breath, so that he could go into it. Um, I my first kind of thought was like interesting choice, because it kind of with another kind of song, it would kind of be like there would be this kind of thought that I would have where I would be like, did we need the backing track there? But I think with a song like this, well, obviously he was taking a breath for himself. You know, he doesn't have he doesn't have lungs the size of you know, a whale or something. You know, he needs he needs to take a breath sometime. But I think there is something really interesting that this adds by having that backing track kind of carry on there. That wouldn't work if it was a different song. It kind of lends itself to the theme of this kind of this bloodthirsty, bloodlusting character, to the point where, if you think about bloodlust, you know, someone like someone or something ravaging something. In those situations, you know, that kind of character creature wouldn't come up for air. You know, they just keep going, and it's interesting having him kind of breathe, because he needs to. You know, Pablo, the person, needs to. But Pablo, the character, is still going on in the background in that moment, if that makes sense. Because it almost, if say when he took the breath, he didn't have the backing track there, and there was just that kind of, apart from like the music, there was silence from in terms of from him. It would have almost humanized the character. I know this probably sounds like I'm just talking out of my butt again, but it would have humanized the character. Whereas in this particular case with this song, it's almost like it lends itself so perfectly to that ritualistic, animalistic, bloodlusting creature that doesn't play by nature's rules. It doesn't need to take a break to take a breath. It just keeps consuming and consuming and continuing. And so I feel like it's a really interesting decision there, because it didn't really happen again. And I think it's, I want to believe it's intentional just because of where it happens. If it happened at the part where we have the more crazed, unconfident Pablo, we could maybe say it wasn't intentional, but there's something, it feels deliberate, especially because of yeah, so here, even in the lyrics beforehand, you can see, or you can hear rather, the kind of break in his voice a little bit when he says clear, clear, clear. It's on the verge of losing that breathlessness, but it's that perfect time because of the transition between the two characters, the two sides, it's just perfect. It's just perfect. I'm just reading the description on the Wish Bus video, and I really like the way that they talk about the theme of the song being about freeing yourself from the need to meet society's unrealistic expectations, because that wasn't. I think I was delving a lot more into the spiritualistic side of it rather than that very literal meaning. I think this song does an amazing job of kind of putting that theme forward, though, because it is very much, lyrically throughout this, talking about how the only person he really needs to almost validate is himself and this deity of the moon. And there's actually aspects of it that almost feels like the moon, La Luna, is almost himself. There's aspects that that make it sound ritualistic and spiritualistic in that way, but there's also a lot of kind of elements where it almost feels like he's externalizing himself. But yeah, I really really like this. Wow. I will be adding this to my Spotify ASAP. I am amazed. I'm not surprised, I'm amazed, but I'm amazed. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys. Bye.